The black political struggles for equality are in a mess, and have been for decades. We have no idea of what we're fighting for, and even less of an idea who we are. Are we fighting for freedom, for equality, or for inclusion? Now, some would say all three, and then conflate them all into one political struggle, not clear or even concerned about which comes first. Because so many of our high-profile movements are led by heavily Europeanized black people, such as black British, black Americans, etc., their strategies are driven by concerns about white Europeans and are almost exclusively Eurocentric. In her book titled Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, which incidentally is almost entirely for and about white people, Renee Eddo-Lodge echoes the concerns of other black British that actions in the USA, such as the civil rights movement, are a million miles away from their experience in the UK. Why? In the same book, Eddo-Lodge quotes Linda Bellos, one of a few people credited with developing a separate Black History Month event in the UK. Bellos is quoted as saying that Black History Month is to celebrate the contribution that black people had made in the United Kingdom. It wasn't about hair, it was a history month, not culture month. There is so much wrong with that I wouldn't know where to begin. But, keeping on topic, we have divided ourselves along European lines, British, American, French, Dutch, Spanish, etc., etc., and are fighting what is essentially the same struggle, but in our separate little corners, reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. We've forgotten that bringing us into European societies was a major part of our enslavement. It's a safe place for white Europeans, and a place where they can easily control us. Now, little has changed, so how then can fighting our way deeper into those societies bring freedom? Linda Bellos says that Black History Month isn't about culture. So, how were free Africans made into black slaves? And I'm not merely talking about pre-emancipation. How did Europeans ensure that we would embrace their rule even after the whipping had stopped and the chains were released? We were chained not by iron, but by values, ideals and beliefs, i.e. culture. We still wear those chains today. Over 100 years after emancipation, black people flooded onto ships such as the Empire Windrush to come to the aid of their mother country, Britain, leaving their own countries in dire need. Today, almost 200 years following emancipation, our main political aim is to prove how British or American, etc. that we are, how useful we are to Europeans. It's only recently that mainstream black thinking has embraced, only superficially, that we are part of a global majority, instead of seeing us as an ethnic minority. The late Professor Stuart Hall talked of black people being at the margins of society, that our aim should be to move from the margins to the centre of the page. Now, I'm not sure how large Hall's page is. I mean, is it global or just the UK again? What does he believe that we will find at the heart of a society built on slavery, colonialism, and a belief in empire? How will a journey to that centre affect someone who has little knowledge of self to begin with? What will be the effect on the freedom of others? There is a rift between mainstream black European political thinking and non-Eurocentric political thinking. Now, an example is that of a leading UK black author and academic described as the foremost theorist of race and racism in the world. Now, he left the UK for the USA, and it was said that he did so because he believed that his work was too radical for the UK politics. Shortly afterwards, a leading American author and academic working within a non-Eurocentric epistemology visited the UK, complaining that there were already enough confused black academics in the USA. Why are we then sending our confused academics over there? Referring specifically to this particular British academic. Now, our thinking in the UK is almost as confused as in the USA. I mean, in the USA, black racists are on the rise and have been, especially since the civil rights movement. Prominent black people making racist comments are becoming commonplace. Comments such as, blacks are uneducated, they're lazy, and they're morally bankrupt. Or, if white people left the USA, then the whole country would descend into one large ghetto. Or, give thanks for slavery, because it brought us to America. There are black police officers involved in shooting innocent black people, or defending white police officers accused of the same. And a black leader of a far-right organisation was arrested for setting fire to a Black Lives Matter banner which they stole from a church. Black racists are not as active in the UK. However, we are rapidly getting there. Conservative politician Kemi Badenoch believes that the British Empire was good for Africa. Another conservative politician, Suella Braverman, holds similar beliefs, saying that the British Empire was a force for good. There are black members of gangs who attack new migrants to the UK, telling them to go home. Black membership of far-right organisations with a history of racism is increasing. Winston McKenzie, a former member of the far-right English Democrats Party, once compared Nigel Farage to Jesus Christ. Now, Badenoch believes that black people do not all have to think the same, and that those who think differently should not be criticised. Now, this is true. However, there is no reason why black people who defend or protect racism, support European supremacy, and contribute to our oppression should be treated any differently from white racists. If we continue as we are, then in years to come, we will see more and more black racists in positions of power and influence, and the struggle for freedom will become almost impossible. A final thought. I mentioned freedom, equality, and inclusion. We cannot conflate these because they do not naturally equate, and each requires different strategies. Equality is easier to achieve if you deny freedom. If you sacrifice your freedom to be as you are and lose or deny everything that may identify you as different, then you'll find it easier to be accepted as an equal. Black people who have attained success in the mainstream of European societies are often culturally little different from their white counterparts. This form of equality will bring inclusion, but only for those individuals who fit the requirements, those who have struggled to fit in. By definition, this remains an exclusive society. Not only will these strategies not achieve freedom, but they will also work counter to diversity. Indeed, strategies for inclusion and diversity can run counter to each other, particularly if we struggle for inclusion before we achieve true diversity. For example, what if, because ballet is deemed to be exclusive, projects are developed to encourage as many black people as possible into ballet? Through groups such as Dance Theatre of Harlem, all local black dance schools, performers and groups are encouraged to run ballet classes. The project is so successful that all local black dancers are now studying and performing ballet. A great success for inclusion. However, what has happened to African dance? It's no longer being studied, practiced or performed. Indeed, African dance has now disappeared. This success for inclusion has meant a devastating loss for diversity.